So something beautiful has happened. Perhaps the most beautiful thing that can happen. It's hard to believe that in a existence so filled with reason to despair, reason to find misery around every corner, that something so beautiful can happen. So you might be asking, what happened? What is it that is so worthy of rejoice? So wonderful that I'm breaking the whole point of this Instagram page, I suppose. In the Audubon Zoo in Ohio, I believe, there's a beautiful, beautiful beast known as the tapir. This one specifically known as Ixchel. She gave birth, which means there's one more beautiful tapir in this world. And why is that so great? As if the simple fact of another beautiful beast being born is not enough, it's this specific type of beast that makes it so important. You see, that the tapir is perhaps God's best creation. I say perhaps just because I know people will argue with that, but I fundamentally believe, I don't believe in God, but I do believe that it's his best creation because it's perfect. It's a wonderful beast. It's closely related to the deer, to the horse, even to the rhinoceros, and yet it looks nothing like any of them. Nothing at all like a single one of those three, because nothing on earth can approximate its beauty. It's just ungodly. Ungodly in a positive way, let me make that clear. Because I think some people hear the word ungodly and they think that's a bad thing. But when I say ungodly and direct it towards the tapir, no, that thing, it is post-God. Post-godly, you could even say. So another one is born. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it's always a beautiful thing to enjoy birth. Birth. The creation of a new being. That is always been seen as something good, generally. But for there to be another tapir on Earth, that's fantastic. And it takes them a while. It takes around 13 months for a new tapir to be born. Because it takes a while. It takes a while for something perfect to gestate. And that's what the tapir truly is perfection. Perfection embodied. I mean, when you see its prehensile snout that it uses, what does it use it for? It uses to grab leaves, to grab fruits, to grab whatever it so desires. But more than that, when it swims, it uses its prehensile snout as a snorkel to continue breathing as he soaks in the beautiful river water. What a fantastic beast. But of course, the birth means more than that, because the tapir is known as the gardener of the forest. Why is that the case? Well, because the innards of their body are so perfectly equipped to gestate plants to help them germinate. So as it eats fruit, as it's frolicking and loving life and being just a pure embodiment of everything that we wish for, it's also growing the food that we will be eating, that the whole forest will be eating. Now, once upon a time, these tapirs, they lived much further north than they do today. They lived all the way up in California, into the United States, I assume further south as well. They lived in Europe, they lived everywhere. And now what happened? Climate's changed. As it's commonly believed that the tapir follows the rainforest or the jungle. Wherever there's jungle, there are tapirs. Now, the issue with that, the issue I have with that, is I think the opposite is true. I don't think the tapir follows the jungle. I think the jungle follows the tapir because of its perfect body. And as it germinates the seeds, it creates the forest wherever it treads. Because of it, it creates a diverse jungle body around it. I mean, Costa Rica is the most diverse ecosystem, nation per square foot in the world. How does it do that? The tapir. What else could you attribute it to? It has to be the tapir. Panama, just south of it, has tapirs, but it has less of them. And because it has less of them, less diverse. Same thing with Nicaragua. Same thing with all of Central America. It's because of the tapir. So obviously in this time of deforestation and decrease of natural resources, the exact thing that we need are more tapirs. They'll save us, they'll change everything, and they will make sure that there is still a planet long after we're gone. The tapir has existed essentially without change long before humans did, and they will continue to exist long after humans are gone. It doesn't matter if we evolve and change to a point where we're no longer Homo sapiens, or if we ruin the planet so bad that we cannot inhabit it, tapirs will still be here. And if they don't, much like the crab, they will evolve to exist again, because planet Earth cannot exist without this beast. There's no other way around it. It's just simple fact. And so because the planet is dying, it's dying as far as what we need it to be, but we can't let that happen if we want to continue living. So because of that, we should rejoice and enjoy and sanctify the birth of every tapir, because that is the solution. I mean, let them go at it like wild and birth 1,000,000 tapirs, and you will see in one generation the planet will be healthier than it's ever been. But there's more to it than that, because the tapir, it's been commonly seen as a weird mix of different animal parts. You know, it's said to have the body of a pig and the snout of an elephant and the hooves of a deer, but the Japanese, they believed that the tapir, they believed it was the same thing as a cryptid or mythical beast that they had called the Baku. And if you look at images of the Baku, now there's some variation in it, but for the most part, the Baku looks incredibly similar to the tapir. And this makes sense because where there is rainforests in Malaysia, you have the Malaysian tapir, because as the tapir moves south through Europe, it also moved down from Eurasia into past the steppes into Malaysia. That's when the rainforests there were created. And so the Japanese people, the people from Nippon, they had some connection to the tapirs there, and they called them the Baku, which is their cryptid that they had. And it was commonly believed there that the Baku, or tapir, or Danta, or whatever you want to call it, devoured nightmares. That's right. These people long ago in Japan, they knew the power of this beast could bring such great joy that it would devour nightmares. It would completely, if you encountered one of these beasts, you would sleep without any nightmares for months on end. They were a joyful being to be celebrated, to be enjoyed, to be cared for, because they were able to bring us, even in our subconscious sleep, in our REM cycle, they were able to get rid of our maladies. And so it was recognized by them that these were beautiful beasts. And let me say, I personally have seen a tapir, which they're a relatively rare beast nowadays. Maybe you've seen them in zoos before, or um, animal reserves or something. But I've actually encountered one. I wouldn't say in the wild. I'm not gonna lie, but I did see one. Yeah, we were at a farm, and I was sitting on this stone wall, much like Hadrian's Wall in northern England, between England and Scotland. It was comparable to that wall, I would say. And so I was sitting on it, and I look behind me because I heard some movement, and I just see something like flop over the wall. And I thought I had not seen nothing, so I thought I had mistaken, you know. And so I looked again. I saw it happen again and again, and finally I peered over the wall, and there it was. It was my first time seeing one in person. It was large. It was a large animal. I mean, they're the largest mammal in Central America. But there it was, and you get a very similar feeling upon seeing one that you get towards seeing a dog, or if you've been close with horses, you get that same type of feeling where it's like a connection to it, like you care about this beast right away. And so there was a mango tree right nearby, and I grabbed a ripe looking mango off of the floor, and I offered it to it willingly, and its little snout came up and like grabbed it off of my hand and took it and ate it, and looked so happy. I mean, it got all the orange pulp all over its face. It covered itself in mango, much as I have done myself in my youth, and it looked so happy. Uh, and I tell you, I'm a person who has regularly had bad dreams, nightmares, and I can remember for months after that sleeping like an angel, sleeping perfectly. Better sleep than I've ever had in my life, at least on a regular basis. And so I've loved the tapir ever since then. Every time I go to Costa Rica and I visit Playa Danta or Playa Dantita right next to it, I get an emotional pain in me because I know the reason those beaches are called that is after the Danta, after the tapir, because surely they must have been pretty common there. I mean, Costa Rica has a tendency to name its beaches very directly. Playas del Coco, Coco Beach, has a lot of cocoa trees, coconut trees. Playa Grande is a very big beach. Playa Tamarindo had a lot of tamarindo trees. Playa Langosta had lobsters. Playa Hermosa is beautiful. Playa Panama was just the beach of Panama town. And so Playa Danta was named that because there were Dantas there. And now, I mean, I don't know anyone there who's seen a Danta in that area. So they must have been killed off because that's just what humanity does. It can't enjoy the beauty of something like that. When it sees something better than itself, the human mind reacts negatively to what is better than it, and so it desires to kill. To it engages a violent part of our brain to want to retaliate against that which is an improvement upon us. And, naturally we all have impulses like that, but I personally try my best to fight it off because when I saw that beast, I knew it was better than me. I mean, I've got lower self esteem, so that's natural, but I knew it was better than me in a collective sense of me. When I looked at it and we met eye to eye with the tapir, and I knew that that thing deserved everything in life. And next to it, we, the collective human us, deserve nothing. Because you know what the tapir's never done? It's never committed genocide. It has never done racism before. It's never created these systems meant to oppress, meant to separate us from the value of our production just so a few at the top can prosper. The tapir doesn't do that. It's built perfectly so that it eats fruit, grows the seeds inside of itself, and then defecates it out so that they're ready to grow and create more fruit for more people to enjoy. And what does it do on its free time when it's not doing that? It's either swimming in beautiful rivers or basking in the sun or eating people's nightmares because it's so saintly as that. The tapir has become a very popular figure in Mormon religion, or at least for ex-Mormons, because, and it's a really interesting history. So horses used to exist in, I know this is going to sound like crazy tangent, but horses used to exist in the Americas, and then they died off. They died off a long time ago. Some of them left over the Eurasian American land bridge. I forget what it's called at the moment. But horses did not exist in the Americas for the longest time. So when Joseph Smith was in the Americas, born and raised, he wrote his Mormon Bible. He found the golden tablets, if you will, and from it deduced the religion that is Mormonism. But in it, he talks about the Israelites in the Americas, and he talks about how the Israelites had horses. But all archaeological digs and searches and finds prove that there would not have been any horses in the Americas during the time that Smith claimed the Israelites existed in the Americas. And so, therefore, that was flawed. Now, some Mormon apologia has claimed that the discrepancy there can be explained by certain reasonings, such as calling the tapirs that did exist in the Americas at that same time, confusing them with horses, or they used a supposedly Israelite word which could have been meant as large beast, and one of the large beasts could have been the tapir. And now anyone who thinks about it can understand that that's ridiculous to believe that the tapir could have been confused with a horse, despite the fact that they're genealogically very similar. It's not going to happen. You're not going to confuse a tapir with a horse. And so a lot of people who have left the Mormon religion have taken upon them the symbol of the tapir to, point out some of the flaws of the Mormon belief and some of the absurdities. I think it's a good representation of the lengths that some people will go to excuse logical fallacies in what they believe. Luckily for me, I have no logical fallacies in any of my beliefs, so I don't have to come up with apologia for it. But, so I think it's beautiful that the tapir can come to represent the attempt to explain away obvious falsities. Because there's a lot of falsities in our existence. And the best way to fight that obvious falsities is by directly mocking it. Mockery is the most powerful thing a lot of people can do. I mean, someone like myself, I don't have political power, I don't have capital, I have mockery. I can deride someone. That is something that I don't think a lot of people understand the power of. And of course, the taper itself is a direct mockery. Nothing should look like that in theory. It's a ridiculous mix of a bunch of stuff, and you put it together, it laughs at reason, and yet it exists despite that because it's so beautiful. It's so amazing. It's so perfect. And the world we live in would be drastically different without that critter. So, when friends of mine in a group chat that I come to and I share this beautiful news of a new taper being born, when they talk about grilling that baby taper, I don't want to engage with them. I don't want to talk to them. I want nothing to do with them. Fuck that. I apologize for that strong language. But I get very defensive about the taper because it's such a fantastic being. And when someone on Twitter calls the taper a pig like creature or a pig looking creature, yes, I will risk getting banned off of Twitter by asking for that person's address to go fight them because I don't care. I will drive from my house all the way to I don't know. I drive to the Yukon to fight someone for calling the taper a pig because look, pigs are amazing in their own right. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic. I've read George Orwell. I know how great pigs are, but to call the taper pig-like, unacceptable. That's just foul. That's just wrong. I can't accept it. The taper is a thing of beauty, and we need to recognize that.